Today we will be talking to students and adult officials about the state of mental health and the issues it can bring to a student during their crucial time of studying during college, while also finding out how they can change to better affect the mental health system.
So, when you think of mental health, what comes to mind?
What comes to mind is how I can try and help those who need help themselves.
Oh, it's a very honest answer, thank you very much.
I think people say the word mental health and they think that's instantly a bad thing.
Yeah.
Whereas I think it can be split into obviously bad mental health and good mental health. And so what comes to mind, I guess, is on the whole, just how you're feeling.
That's good.
Well, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is like the negative thoughts around it. Like it's a big thing at the moment, especially with lockdowns and stuff, that it's not bad to have bad mental health, but there's a lot of like, I don't know. But yeah, there's a stigma around bad mental health, and it's bad to have bad mental health.
Would you say college had a negative effect or a positive effect on your mental health?
I'd say on the whole a positive, because I met so many people that have helped me along the way.
Bit of both.
They're both.
The work's negative, but the people are positive.
I don't know, to be honest, I don't think it's really had a particular effect either way. Because there are some bits that I guess weren't the best for my mental health. Like stuff with timetabling and stuff wasn't great for some of the things that were going on, but at the same time coming into college and seeing people where I could was helped. So I guess a bit of both really.
That's good.
A bit of both, actually. College, it puts all this work on you and just expects you to get on with it. But then again, college does bring the asset of making new friends who have similar interests as you do, which allows you to make much better friends with everyone than previous friends, most likely. Yeah, so it's both good and bad.
What do you like to do to help yourself or help distract yourself?
Just relax by watching shows on Netflix or whatever.
Oh, that's good.
I try to think of things that I find fun. Watching films and TV, just playing games or just building Lego sets. It's just all very fun. Keeps your mind off everything.
I find music helps me a lot, and I find talking to friends.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
It's nice that you can open up to them as well.
Yeah.
Would you rather talk to your friends about your mental health than say going to seek professional help?
Definitely.
Do you think they'd help more?
I find it more comfortable to open up to them rather than a stranger that I met on the day.
Okay, that's good.
Well, there's a few things. I read or listen to music, or I play music, just anything that will keep my hands busy. And just because if they're doing something, then my brain is focused on that. It's quite a good job of distracting me.
Would you say social media helps with mental health?
To an extent, because obviously there's that social side where you can like talk to friends and stuff like that, but then there's obviously the side of cyberbullying and stuff that doesn't help.
Nah.
No. Do you like to elaborate on that, or just?
It's just people comparing themselves to others and people hating people on there. Yeah, so I don't bother.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
It's like a log in a vast current of water heading towards a waterfall. When you're in the upper river, it helps you float, it helps you stay up. But when it comes to the waterfall, it's not much use at all. It's the same way as the social media. It helps you stay in contact with friends, but then you see other people's opinions and interpretations that you don't fully understand, and it can hurt massively on your feelings. So it's good and bad.
Definitely. Here we have the amazing videographer and photographer Jack Turner, who was a previous student at Bridgewater College. So I feel he can give some insight into other students and give them some word of advice. So, when you think of mental health, what comes to mind?
What comes to mind initially, especially on my point of view, is stress, because a lot of people have layers in their head mentally that they constantly think over and they dwell on it. And not all the time, because people have different perceptions towards mental health, but to me, it becomes stress. Stress causes your mental health to decline, in my opinion, especially during the pandemic.
What would you do to help or distract yourself? What do you like to do?
I like to, because I'm a filmmaker myself, I love watching films. So when I'm under a bit of pressure or stress, I like to take a few hours to myself or evening to myself, and I like to watch a film. Really, I like to put on Netflix on, watch a film, because it just helps with your own project for college as well. So I like to watch films, TV shows, and listen to music. I also like to spend a bit of time with my friends as well. And believe it or not, even teachers themselves, they're great people to talk about films to, and they give great insights towards the industry. So sometimes understanding what the industry expects from you can also lead on to the quality of your project.
Would you say social media can affect someone's mental health?
Yes, without a shadow of a doubt. It depends on how you use social media, determines on how much control the apps can cause you. So if you use it constantly 24 hours, there's something wrong with the way you're using social media, Facebook, Instagram. I wouldn't say Snapchat as much because it's not really a social media type of thing, but well, it is, but not to the extent. It doesn't have loads of posts or anything like that. But Instagram, Facebook, they are so manipulative and they cause you to think differently towards the world. And I think it's super important to spread awareness towards mental health, towards social media, because people post loads of things of what they're up to. And it sometimes on the other end can make people feel bad about what they're doing towards their own home life. You know, when people take a gap year, they post a lot. Like if I was on a gap year and I was in, like, I don't know, South Africa, of course I would want to post images of where I'm at. Like, but the one thing that we never think about when we're posting is how's it going to make the other people feel? Because you're traveling all around the world, they're sat at home in the UK weather right now, raining, trying to watch Netflix, but all they're thinking about is, I wish I was doing what this person was doing that he's just posted. Whereas how I use social media, because I actually spent 2 years ago when I lost my dog, I actually came off of all of social media because I just couldn't be on it as much anymore, because it became one of those factors where I'm now, even I'm understanding that I'm now wanting to post my grief. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm now becoming what other people are doing themselves, is they would post something about that person or dog or animal that they used to be so cared for. I'm so self-aware that I can't just make people feel bad because I lost something I love. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that. So I actually left Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook. I kept in touch with my closest friends through iMessage, WhatsApp. And honestly, one of the best times ever. But because I'm now getting that stage now with my filmmaking business, I had to get social media again. So I now got Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, basically the lot, but I'm using it in such a way where I'm now only posting business stuff, and it's helping a lot. My mental health has been more than great when I'm using social media. I don't feel as hooking onto it as much, as addictive.
Would you say teenagers suffer more from mental health?
Ooh, teenagers suffering more from mental health. That is a question I've got to be careful to answer because on one side, yes, I think teenagers these days do suffer from mental health a lot. Like I think it's so unfortunate, but suicide rates are going up. I on one end, yes, I think teenagers do suffer more from mental health, but on the other end, no, because we don't understand adults as much as we should do. Because I think a lot of adults do suffer from mental health, but they're not talking about it as much as like teenagers are. I think a lot of these days, I'm also working with Young Somerset, and they provide a lot of well-being support for young people, so which is amazing. So I think on one end, yes, social media can cause more mental health for teenagers, and also without social media, teenagers do suffer from mental health a lot because we're living in a time where that pandemic is still going on. We might be in another lockdown in the, in due course. We do not know. All I know is that during the recent lockdown, the mental health towards everybody really has just gone right up. So I wouldn't want to say yes, teenagers suffer more from mental health, because there is a broader answer to that, and I just think that everybody suffers with mental health. It's not just teenagers.
With students right now going through what they're going through with COVID and everything like that, all the lockdowns, what would you say to help them get through it?
I would say going through COVID, so many people have different opinions towards that and different perspectives. I did 2 documentaries about that. One was called Jack's Perspective on the Pandemic, which was my perspective, and the other one was called Key Workers, the Real Heroes, which was key workers' perspectives. And what I learned from that is everybody had different perspectives. Even students during January, when I was talking to them about their experience with COVID and everything like that, and the lockdown, and so many had different perspectives, approaches towards it. And honestly, if there were people out there that are really struggling with being in lockdown, the one thing I will say is this. There are 2 things actually. One is just say to yourself, this won't be forever. We will move on from this. We will see each other again. We will look where we're at. It's September now, and now we're somewhat back to normal-ish. So back in January, we were locked in. So you could tell we are progressing. We've been double vaccinated. So I would definitely say it's such a hard thing to say, but the best thing I could say is like, keep your chin up. We'll all gain through this as well. We won't be like this forever. Sooner or later, and it will be sooner, that the pandemic will be behind us. So I do believe in that. So just think that you'll see your loved ones again. And the other one is that if you have a passion in something, whether it's filmmaking, photography, art, even, other things as well that you love, like, being, a paramedic or anything like that, now is the best day, and now is the best chance to do it. Like, really push yourself, because you can't do anything else. You can't go outside. You can't see each other right now. I know we are now, but let's say we're back into another lockdown. Now is the best chance to really push on your aspirations, because that's what I treated during lockdown. I struggled badly during January. So what I did was that I pushed myself towards my filmmaking. And oddly enough, the filmmaking that I did, the projects, have now been selected in festivals. So now is the best chance. So try and distract yourself as much as possible, even though it's really a easy said than done situation.
We wanted to get a different point of view when it comes to mental health in schools. So we decided to get in contact with a teacher to get their view on the matter and how it can be changed. Would you say college is good for mental health?
I think college can be supportive for people suffering with poor mental health. I think it can also provide escapism. But sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming as well. It depends what's causing the poor mental health. If it's anxiety in big groups and new people, or pressures of deadlines and stuff like that, then obviously it could be fairly detrimental. Depends on the individual. But again, they do have processes in place and people to speak to should you need that assistance.
Would you say social media helps with mental health?
Again, probably not on the whole, but for individuals, again, it might provide escapism. It might provide somebody to talk to, whether you know that person or not. It might provide information for people who are struggling, but it's down to the individuals to control it. And if individuals who has a negative effect on don't turn it off, then that negative effect is constantly going to be there and gnawing away at them, and that would then be detrimental to mental health.
What would you suggest students should do to help themselves or others when it comes to mental health?
Understanding, educating themselves on what is happening, talking to people, controlling things like their exposure to social media, their exposure to other people who aren't helpful to their situation. But I think mainly just seeking that assistance, that understanding of what they're thinking, why they're thinking, what they're feeling, why they're feeling, and maybe talking through that with somebody who is a professional or just somebody who's got the time to just sit there and listen to them. I've helped students in the past who have been in and out of counselling outside of college. They haven't found it useful, and they just wanted somebody to talk to for an hour a week. So just by being that person, you're able to help them. So I think it's down to the individual. Everybody works in different ways, so it's finding something that works well for them. But that is quite a journey to go on to try and discover that.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, so based on an answer we had to a question earlier, would you, so say if a student came up to you struggling with mental health and they wanted to talk to you about it, would you, do you have any experience with like counselling, or do you have any qualifications in counselling or anything like that?
I don't have any qualifications.
No, so would you turn them away because of that, or would you still talk to them and help them through it?
I'd instantly be available to that person.
You wouldn't just like turn them away and refer them to a professional or a counsellor or anything?
No, I'd talk to them initially and maybe suggest that there is the counselling option. Would they be interested in that? But I wouldn't ever dismiss them and send them straight to that. I'd need to understand a little bit more about the situation to understand what's best for them to help them, or if I am capable of just being able to talk to them and listen to them, or if they need more than that. So I need to understand the situation a little bit more, but I'd never dismiss anybody.
Okay, we'll be speaking with the head of student services. It's an honour to have you speak with us. So why don't you tell us, our audience, what you do here at Bridgewater College?
Well, I'm one of the directors of the college. There are 9 of us in the senior team, but my role is to lead on all the pastoral services of the college. So that includes things like wellbeing, counselling, but a number of other services as well that perhaps are equally important, like catering, for example. That's why we talked about a new coffee shop this morning. And I'm also clerk to the governing body of the college as well, so I have a direct link to the governors of the college and make sure that we have appropriate governance for the college, because obviously it's a major public organisation.
So first, how would you say COVID has affected a lot of the students and their mental health?
I think it's been a very serious and damaging period. Nobody's fault. We didn't expect that, did we? But I think a lot of students have come out of the pandemic. They've been very isolated. Normally for your age group, a really important part of your development is socialisation, isn't it? And doing things with other people, enjoying yourself but learning at the same time, and losing that social contact both in education and outside in social lives, I think it's had a really damaging effect. We've been very worried about it throughout, and during the various lockdowns we were working really hard to keep in touch with students who we knew perhaps had vulnerabilities. Of course, it all had to shift to phone and a bit of Teams as well, and video calling and things. We stayed open for very few students. I used to be in every Thursday during those lockdowns, completely empty college, and 6 or 7 students coming into our learning centres. The problem is, I suppose, that we knew before the pandemic about a lot of students with vulnerabilities. I think what the pandemic has done, though, has increased levels of anxiety and mental health difficulties, and of course things like domestic tensions as well, because young people have been at home. Everybody perhaps in a small home, tensions rise. So we were really quite worried reopening for this September about what we'd find. Would there be a pandemic of mental health issues? I think it's fair to say there have been a lot. We've got very, very busy wellbeing teams now, very busy counselling teams. We're trying to think about how we can extend our wellbeing offer to students, because there are so many issues at the moment. We went straight out, you may have answered it yourself, but we did a very short, snappy survey after about 1 week, 2 weeks of term to say, how has it started for you, or how is it good to be back if you're not a new student? And it was quite nice to see that there were lots of very positive comments, but equally some students who clearly didn't feel good about things, even anxious about coming back into college, actually, some of them as well. So we were very cunning, and we know who you are when you put a comment in the survey, so we reached out to quite a number of students who said something in the survey that worried us. But it was equally nice to see that a lot of young people also were saying it's great to be back, and I really enjoyed my classes, and obviously sort of celebrating the fact that education was open for business again. And I think, you tell me, you know better, but I just get a sense that actually most people are grateful to be back, and behaviour is better than previous years perhaps as well. Always by this point in the term, maybe we've got a very few students who perhaps want to push the boundaries, break the rules. We've got less of that this year, I think. And, again, that could be part of this, being glad to be back, glad to be involved again, glad to be learning with your peers, So it's a real mix, yes, lots of mental health difficulties. We're even looking at the moment whether we can use an external company for a 24/7 phone line as well, so that when the college has locked its doors at night, perhaps there'd still be a way of getting in touch and saying, I'm a BTC student and I need some help. So, we're trying to do everything we can, but at the same time feeling it's good to be open again, good to have everybody back, and getting a sense that people are enjoying it mostly.
Yeah. Well, that phone line is good insight. Obviously, that's something we've not been able, it's an answer we've not gotten yet, so that's a really good insight.
I can't promise it yet. It will cost us as a college,
Oh,
but I'm hopeful that we could start rolling out some things like that to extend our wellbeing service.
Would you say social media helps people with mental health?
I think it's a real mixed bag. I think spending too long on social media, or sometimes not even spending long on social media, can have a very negative effect. Because I think if you're sitting, particularly in a lockdown situation, if you're sitting and lonely at home and isolated from your peers, and you're always on social media, you might sort of get the sense, everybody else is having a better time than I am. It's not great for me. It also can be a very damaging place for things that probably are more likely to upset you than make you feel better as well. So on the positive side, I suppose social media, it's a very easy way to keep in touch with each other, isn't it? And a bit like us old and grey people found that Microsoft Teams was a way of still talking to our colleagues, and you've probably used it for teaching and learning. I guess social media has also been very valuable in recent history, hasn't it, with lockdowns and things, that very easy for you to get in touch with other people and see them and talk to them and have a constant flow of communication. So I would hope that what we probably need to achieve as a society is getting the balance right, don't we? That drawing on the strengths of social media, but not depending on it and being upset by it and being exposed to things that perhaps aren't helpful.
Definitely, I agree with that. Okay, so if there were people at home who were sort of too afraid to talk about their issues, too afraid to actually come out and say anything, what would you say to try and encourage them to talk openly, or at least to talk to someone?
Well, I think a number of things. I mean, people can get worried by the word counselling, can't they? Because they think, oh, it's deep and psychological, but I think something that's very effective and popular here, our wellbeing service really just tries to help any young person who's got obstacles to learning. And it might turn out those obstacles are, I'm really stressed about getting the bus. It doesn't feel very COVID safe, For somebody else, it might be a mental health difficulty or a domestic issue or a relationship issue. But I think a message to young people would be to say, look, you don't have to get into a complete psychoanalytical history of yourself and your family. It could be that just a chat with somebody, an initial chat, could be personal tutor, could be a wellbeing officer, could be a teacher. That might just help you overcome some obstacles that you're finding. And I suppose the other thing to say is nearly all young people at some point are going to have a difficulty, aren't they? And it's you're not alone. There's nothing unusual if you come to one of our services or to your personal tutor and say, I'm a bit worried about this. I've got a problem about this, And I think it's something that's got better in recent years, that people generally, not just young people, have got better at being open about their psychological difficulties, mental health difficulties. There's much more sort of public awareness, and it's okay, isn't it, to talk. So I think that would be my message to students. It's okay to talk, and it will probably help you.
That's a very good message.
And you may find by talking you help yourself and realise what your solutions are to the problem.
But even by talking to somebody else, you could help somebody else as well. It could give them the confidence.
Absolutely.
Or it could at least encourage them by talking to actually.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, absolutely.
Final question. Okay, final question.
Okay, final question.
Final question. Final question. How would you change the college to better affect the mental health of students?
I'm really not sure. There's not a lot of emphasis on the things that they can do to help students. Like, obviously there are things they can do, like there's the counselling and stuff, but there's no real advertising of that. So unless you say to a tutor, I'm struggling with this, you don't really know it exists. So I guess advertise that more. Make sure more people know about it. Because if more people know about it, then more people would try it. Might actually help.
I don't know, probably more safe spaces. And I think possibly although it doesn't help me that much, more counsellors to really pinpoint what's gone wrong with that child and why they're feeling that way.
So, do you think the college have done a good job so far, or do you think they do a good job of tackling mental health?
I think they're doing the best they can, because obviously there's not loads of funding, so there's not much that they can do, but with the limited funding they do have, they've done a really good job.
So, if you were, say, given the funding to improve the mental health of this college or colleges in this area, what would be your first thing? What would you do first? What would you do with it?
Probably the counsellors thing.
Okay.
To sit down with a child and actually understand what they're going through and stuff like that.
Notice it more.
Okay. So actually look out for it, notice the signs. Oh, that's good.
I would have each tutor and college staff member take a course on how to help students, not them take a course on what the problem is, but try and find a course where it helps solve the problem. Not understanding the problem, it's help solve the problem as well.
So, do you not think that understanding the problem can lead to solving the problem?
Yes and no. If you understand the problem, you could eventually solve it. But it would take a long time, and sometimes those students don't have a long time to wait. But if you understood how to solve it, you could easily discover how the student is feeling and fix the problem there. You find out what the problem is and you just solve it. You find a solution.
So it's about getting it done quicker, so that there's no time for it to really, for their mental health to deteriorate. You want to get to the bulk of it straight away.
It depends on how the student feels. If they feel like they don't want to talk about it at first, then you take it slowly.
Yeah.
But if you can see that they're really struggling, you try and help them, maybe take a load off their plate and you replace it with what can help.
So there's already so much that the college do to support students, to raise awareness of mental health, and to support the local charities. But I think just having more space or spaces that are usable for people to escape on a daily basis, staff and students alike, whether it is green outdoor spaces or if it's secure indoor spaces. But obviously that comes at a premium, and the spaces we do have we often need for lessons and everything else. And obviously we do have spaces like the LRC where people can go and maybe escape in a book. But because everybody is so different, it's so hard to cater for absolutely everybody. Because there's different coping mechanisms, there's different mental health, and there's also different demographics across the college with international students, with staff. So you get different age groups, backgrounds. So all of that kind of filters into the different approach to managing mental health. But like I said, I think they do a hell of a lot already, and liaising with local organisations even to bring them in to help cope. We've got trained counsellors, we've got a wellbeing team, we've got wellbeing managers, we've got tutors who are often on the front line. We've got first aiders, we've got mental health first aiders. So there's a lot in place already. So any change is often very difficult for a multitude of reasons. But yeah, maybe space is the only thing that kind of comes to my head.
Oh, good question. I don't know if the teachers are going to hate me for what I'm going to say or love me for what I'm going to say. I think back in January, aside some teachers, like for example, Alan and a former teacher called Simon, they were fantastic with helping us through our mental health. Other teachers, which I won't name, like they're all brilliant, may I just say, they're all fantastic teachers. But let's just say, let's not talk about the school we're at, the college we're at. Let's not talk about Bridgewater College. Let's just talk about the whole system as a whole in the United Kingdom. So I'd say more on there needs to be more support for students going through times like COVID, because when we were in lockdown, we had to make a music video. So immediately my head's going through questions like, question 1, how the hell am I going to film this? Question 2, how the hell am I going to communicate the direction towards this? Like, I'm having to virtually now direct my band. And question 3, is this an impossible job? That is like, you're making a music video that's supposed to be ambitious. And I remember thinking to myself, this is where watching films really distracts me from my mental health. So I remember WandaVision came out at that time. So I remember, stopping on Friday mornings just so I could take a break and watch WandaVision. And oddly enough, the inspiration was WandaVision for my music video, which is called Your Behole. And I remember the teachers, we were all just thinking to ourselves, like, our mental health is slowly going. I remember feeling so anxious during January time of lockdown, because I was so under pressure to get everything done and make sure my priority was to impress the band. Like, I didn't like, it didn't matter to me if it was lockdown going on. My priority is to impress. So that was my priority. But when we were starting to get on a roll and I was starting to really, really do it, and I was so proud of it, we were then given another unit, overlapping music videos. Not only was the music video due in 3 weeks beforehand, or 4, we also had our Foley unit that was due in 2 weeks as well. So immediately that had so many more questions, like, how am I going to balance this? How am I going to now do music videos and Foley at once? How am I going to literally, I don't want to use this word, but burn out? Do you know what I mean? So I managed to do it. And after lockdown, when I think it was like March time, where we were all on a Zoom call with Alan, and we were expressing how we felt during lockdown, and our mental health was so low. And even Alan was like, oh my God, we need to make sure that this isn't, this doesn't happen again. So he actually contacted Young Somerset to help us out and do like sessions for anxiety, which is nothing but respect for Alan, because he really focused on our mental health during lockdown. Whereas a lot of colleges these days, they don't really focus on that. They don't focus on the mental health towards students. They just focus on the units and what has to be done and the criterias. Yes, you'll get your moments with one-to-ones, but let's be honest, how much do you actually get from that? Like, not as in like, what do you get from it once you do it, as in like, how much do you actually get one-to-ones? Is it like weekly? Because I remember thinking when I was in level 2, visual arts media course about 2 years ago, we barely had one-to-ones. I barely had one-to-ones because we just had so many students, and the way they handled the mental health well-being aspects of it all, even on the media course, just giving us links saying, if you're struggling with mental health, please go onto these links. I'm thinking, this isn't the way to approach talking to your young people, because you can't just give them a link and say, here's something you could do if you're struggling during lockdown. If you really want to help students, approach them. And I can't help but think, I think some teachers say they're not qualified to talk to mental health, to people about the mental health. Apologies for my language, that's bullshit. Because I personally think you don't have to be qualified to help people. You don't have to be qualified to ask them, saying, how do you feel? Because I remember we had this one teacher saying, her name was, actually, I'm not going to name who she is, but I had a level 3 teacher, and she was brilliant, absolutely amazing, because every week she would come up to me saying, how are you feeling? How was your weekend? That's all you need. Do you know what I mean? That's what you need. Just a teacher to care for you and be 3-dimensional. And no matter what, even if they don't ask how you are, they're all brilliant teachers, mostly. They do nothing but love and passion for the courses that they're doing and teaching you. But even I have to admit, during times of COVID, I don't want to say they're not doing enough, but so going forward, there needs to be more aware towards mental health for young people, because we have the rare teachers like Alan and like Simon and like Julian and like Mino and Matt Cox. Like, they do care about your mental health, and it's fantastic, but there needs to be more for it. Like, you can't just go up and say to, if there are students really struggling with their mental health, it sounds really bold to say this, but you can't just say, right, I'm gonna bring a counselor for you or a therapist, because that just makes them feel worse. You just need to have a one-to-one, a proper in-depth one-to-one with them, and actually talk about, how was your week? How was your weekend? Like the teacher I had in level 1, we just talk about how you feel. And once you talk about how you feel, you're ready for your education, because if you want to get the best grade, you need to be in the best mindset.
That's a really good question, isn't it? Because we're always thinking about that. What can we change? Well, I mean, it would be nice, like I say, we are looking at, are there some options for 24/7 cover? So, might have a pilot of that this year in one campus or something, and then see if we can roll it out to all campuses. I think that would be helpful. Frustrated this year. I mean, everything's COVID related, isn't it? But, we haven't been able to get builders or materials. So some of our more enrichment spaces aren't open yet. There's one next door to this office that is still just an empty shell and still needs the electrics put in and things. It's been really frustrating this summer. So I think the more that we can push enriching activity towards young people, that's going to help as well. We'd like young people signing up for the Duke of Edinburgh scheme and yomping across the Quantox and so on. But equally, perhaps other students feeling that they might enjoy a yoga session in this nice new space we're building next door. So I think, I'd like much more enrichment going on and activities students can join in with, academies, clubs, all that sort of thing. And it's just been really difficult because of COVID and because we haven't been able to get builders to finish the spaces where we do some of those things. So that's what I'd change, I think. If I could wave a magic wand and suddenly have lots of activities going on outside the subject you're studying, I think that would be really valuable.
Cool. Well, thank you for that. That's a very different answer again. Yeah, that's something that nobody's touched on. A lot of people have said about safe spaces. Nobody said about enrichment centres and actually getting people active and getting people just things to distract themselves.
Yeah, there's a direct link, I think, between sort of physical activity and different and interesting activity to well-being. And I run some of those teams as well. So we're really looking to enrich this year if we possibly can.
Throughout this documentary, we have learned issues from both sides, from the students to the people who are in charge of their welfare. We hope this can bring a light to how students can be affected during college times. Hopefully it can be a start of a change using the voices of students. Have a good day and check on a friend.